Welcome to another coffee with you know who, me. I am Laura, of course, your friendly health and life coach, personal trainer, nutrition specialist here with all the fun things that we get to discuss about what it really means to be healthy. Today, we're going to attack a really big topic: fear. Specifically, your relationship with fear. Fear is a funny emotion in general. Most people summarize their entire emotional dialect with happy, sad, good, bad, and mad. Um, but it's also very unrealistic to think that we don't feel fear. For example, one of the reasons why we try to predict what people think is because we're afraid to ask. One of the reasons why we kind of feel like a failure sometimes is because we're afraid to get clarity on what success would look like, or even communicate. If we have to ask a question, we're afraid to be come across as silly or uneducated or whatever it's going to be. Every day we experience fear, but we don't identify it as fear because we don't like the feeling of fear, and people typically associate it with weakness, but it's just humanity, quite frankly. And fortunately, we don't have the fears like a bear attacking us or a lion. That's a relief, as much as, our ancestors used to. Today's fears really come in our self-perception and our fear around how we're viewed or what people think of us, which makes it show up literally everywhere. Because whether you're at home and you're talking to your partner or your roommate or your kids and they make a comment, if you have any previous experience where maybe you thought you weren't the smartest person, all of a sudden that small comment from the kid or the partner means a lot more because you have that insecurity and because you're afraid of being seen that way. So let's look at your relationship to fear. If you're someone who has a hard time identifying when you're afraid, that means you probably have a crappy relationship with fear to begin with, because you're never giving it space to actually be there. You're just trying to pretend you don't feel fear, and you likely try to control whatever the outcome is and experience anxiety instead. But like all emotions, we don't like all of them, but they all have their value and their place to guide us and help us understand what's going on within us. And fear is a really big one, especially because of the fears that we encounter so much now have a lot to do with how we're being perceived by others. So one of the biggest mistakes people make with fear, besides pretending they don't experience it, is they stop at it. So I'm afraid my boss will think I made a mistake. I'm afraid my partner won't love me anymore. I'm afraid that if I tell my friend how I feel, she won't want to be my friend anymore, or whatever it's going to be. And then that's it. I'm just afraid that those things are going to happen. So emotions are energy in motion. That's why they're called emotions. So here's this energy in motion that we're just spinning around, holding, staying stuck in. No wonder we don't like it. That's the problem. The emotions that we don't like, it's not as much about the fact that we don't like them, is that we don't know how to process through them. So they just stay stuck in that energy cycle. So what is fear really pointing to? Well, there's an acronym I like: false expectations appearing real. But I like to think of fear as anxiety's big brother. It's a symptom of anxiety, but what makes it more threatening is because it almost always means something that we feel is important is uncertain or isn't safe, which is why stress and anxiety work very closely with fear, because stress is what arises when something we feel like we care about is at stake. Anxiety is what arises when something in the future feels uncontrollable. Fear is what arises when something that's important to us feels uncertain or unknown. So you see how the three of them kind of work together, but we can call it stress, anxiety, or fear. It is important to create the distinction between them because that will help you understand how to process through them. But ultimately, you just got to keep going. So let's say you're afraid of asking your boss for clarity around a specific project. What are you afraid is going to happen? Maybe it's that your boss is going to think you're an idiot and never give you another project because clearly you don't understand it. Okay, then what? You continue doing your job, notice that he's not giving you more work, and find a new job or talk to him about it. Then what? You keep living your life. Or what if you're afraid to tell your friend how you feel because you think they might not be friends with you anymore? Let's play that one out. Okay. You tell her how you feel. She doesn't want to be your friend anymore. Then what? You feel shitty for a little bit. You miss her. You realize if she couldn't hear how you feel, she's probably not a good friend to begin with. You get over it, make more true friends, and life continues to go on. But that's the point. What we're really afraid of are feelings. We're afraid of feeling uncomfortable. We can take it. We're pretty tough. We look at fear like this wall that we keep running into, but it's really a shadow. It's when we move past fear and ask, okay, if this happens, then what? That we gain the power back, because the answer is I'll feel crappy and then I'll keep moving on, because that's the only other real option. But when you look at fear, like when you identify, like, I am afraid of this thing, and then you run the other way or you hide from it, your relationship with fear is hostile and absolutely influencing your decisions, because you're afraid of feeling anything uncomfortable, which will make you more anxious, more controlling, and experience more suffering. But if you can shift your relationship with fear and befriend it to understand, it's a tool for you to understand what's important to you. And then if it's important to you, then you can make sure it's easier for you to protect. So, using my previous two examples, the presentation to your boss that you want clarity on, you can approach it as, this is what I'm thinking you're looking for, but I want to make sure that I get it right first because I totally value your time. Is there anything that you feel like is missing from what I'm understanding within this presentation? He would tell you, oh, okay, this person just wants to make sure that my time isn't wasted and that they get the project right from the beginning. Okay, so what was important to you is that your boss didn't think you're dumb. If you know that, you can reflect on how you want to present it to your boss and then have a positive outcome. Or let's say the whole friend scenario comes up. You can say, I'm in a really tough spot because I deeply value our relationship and I'm feeling like some of my needs in the relationship are being misunderstood and I don't want to lose you as a friend. That's what's most important to me. So are you in a space where you can hear this? Or is this something you would rather I keep to myself? If you ever approach someone like that, they always want to hear it. So they're going to ask you. But one thing you got to know, people don't like giving you the reaction you ask for. So if you say something like, I'm afraid you're going to get upset by this, they don't want to show you that they're going to be upset because you just predicted their behavior. So simply by calling out, like, I'm afraid to do this because this is important and I value this, but are you okay asking their permission? Then you can have the conversation. Again, what was important? The friendship. By understanding that, you can then revise how you want to approach whatever it is. Fear shows up so that we can be motivated to take specific action to protect whatever is important to us. That's a healthy relationship with fear. Being able to identify it, recognize what's important that feels uncertain, and consider, if it happens, what am I going to do? Okay, worst case scenario happens, I live, all right, but how can I set myself up for success? Given what's important to me, how can I present this in a way that protects me or honors me? When you can look at fear that way instead of something you need to hide from or be ashamed of, because quite frankly, we really do all have it, it stops having power over you. When you can realize what you're really afraid of is just feeling uncomfortable things, you can take that stuff. I don't like it any more than you do, but fear stops us from making good, hard, challenging choices that propel our life in positive directions. it's a choice, the relationship you want to have with fear, but are you really that scared to feel uncomfortable things that you want to let it limit your life? I mean, zero judgment if that's you. I'm a very non-judgmental person, but I don't know, maybe it's just my perception. I don't think anything is worth limiting your life because you only get one, so you may as well make it as good as possible, right? But if you find that you have a challenging relationship with fear, two suggestions. One, go to TED Talk or YouTube, either way, and look up fear setting. It's like goal setting, but for fear setting, and it is brilliant. And it's a whole exercise you can do to help you work through your fears. Or if you want, I have the handout and I can send it directly to you. Just shoot me a DM. But if you're super serious about healing not just your relationship with fear, but all your relationships with control, pleasure, peace, anxiety, stress, sleep, etc., then you need to look at the Get to Know the Real You, because that is my new program, but it's all about building your confidence, breaking through your previous conditioning, recreating your conditioning, giving you a new mental filter, and working through these uncomfortable emotions so you know how to process them so they no longer own you, but you own them. Pretty legit, right? So if that is something you think you could benefit from, then you should go check it out on my website. But for now, befriend fear. It's just a shadow. You can handle it. And next week, make sure you tune in because we're going to be talking about how you can belong to your authentic self instead of adhering to the program. Until next week, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.